Hello, my virtual audience. Welcome to my session. Today I'm going to talk about a topic on the addressing temporal trends in real-world evidence of treatment effects. This is a project I did during my postdoc at Harvard. So most of my collaborators here, they are from Harvard Medical School and School of Public Health. So first of all, as required by the data provider, we have to make this disclosure that the study is sponsored by Merck, and the data for the project is provided by the Project Data Sphere, the website, but they are not responsible for our conclusions, and there's no additional conflict of interest to announce. So here is an overview of the talk today. First, I will briefly introduce the background, why EHR is useful for advancing cancer care. So we start with a winning strategy of its benefit, and then pointing out two key challenges that we are about to resolve in the study. That one is the curation of analysis data from EHR. The other is correcting for the confounding, which I would define if you haven't heard of it, especially with this temporal trends over time. And to showcase the challenges and also our solution, we focus on a study of emulation of the randomized clinical trial, which is a paper published this year. We talk about three aspects. One is the data curation, that we talk about the variable grouping and the phenotyping and the natural language processing technique that to prepare the data. And we talk about how can we use causal inference tools to model the data, that we use the doubly robust estimation with co-trained temporal period stratified models. And in the end, we will show the analysis results from the real-world evidence that we successfully emulate the randomized clinical trial, and we will list the temporal trends that detected in the process. To start with, let me show you this, a diagram showing why EHR is so great. So basically, in a traditional study, we have to take a long time for a study from the recruitment through the initiation and a follow-up and analyze and reporting, right? So most of the time elapsed during this follow-up, we have to wait until those outcome of interest happen, right? However, in EHR study, the data has been routinely collected by the providers, right? So then when we access data, those hard work have been done by them. We immediately have all this history of treatment initiation and the future outcome after the treatment. And all we have to do is do the analysis and reporting. So the study cycle much shorter. And this mimics the winning strategy of some, deep learning method, like first generation AlphaGo, like we learned from the past games, right? So this is like EHR is this past game of healthcare. And once we have this faster turnover, the other benefit is we don't have to recruit additional labor to conduct the study, because all these providers have already prepared the data for us. And so that we can use EHR study to supplement traditional study in many ways. For example, we can do preliminary screening for resource allocation, and in case of the COVID pandemic, we can also use EHR as the first response to the crisis before any traditional study can kickstart, right? So, and also we might use alternatively the tool to assist recruitment and the follow-up, to run pragmatic trial, for example, with EHR assistance. So first of all, we want to describe what is this the word in the title, real world of evidence, how it's different from the randomized clinical trials. So the randomized clinical trials are still considered the gold standard in defining the treatment guidelines, but we have to acknowledge they are good, but they have certain limitations. The first of all, they have lack of generality, right? So the real world patient population they are usually different from the eligible patients in the trials. We kind of usually we see like trial cohort, they are healthier in general. Also for the randomized clinical trial, they have a focus on studying the efficacy on the treatment or the intervention, and somehow the effectiveness. That's the treatment assignment in a real world setting. Usually they are accompanied by many other like components, right? So they go in a dynamic way. So for that reason, like if we only focus on the drug or the intervention effect, that's the efficacy, we cannot describe fully the the whole set of the treatment kind of package, right? So in the real world setting, the effectiveness. And also, of course, we have mentioned that this is cost a lot of money. So if the study do not have a financial incentive, then we might not have a sponsor for that. And also, we might have like a difficulty recruiting enough patients from a single site, right, for like rare outcome or like rare diseases. But for EHR, we can combine different sites easily because just the data moving, not the people moving together, right? So, and thanks to the ubiquitous like adoption of EHR in the United States, we have almost like 96% of the hospital system have EHR already. I think this number probably is growing already from once I collected. And in the EHR, we have a comprehensive information about the history of patient health from those structured data that collected through the interactive tables. And also we have the medical notes that in the narrative format, and also all kinds of lab values and biomarkers. Now these are more popular. We also have images from different diagnosis tools. So we have like really a promising prospect like using EH for all kinds of study, including cancer. However, but from some insider in industry, it seems like there's limited profit from for example, big company like Google. The reason is the EHR data had like healthcare data are much more complicated than games like chess or Go, right? So we have intrinsic noise in medical outcomes. You don't really know win or loss instantly, right? And also EHR data itself, it is far from ready to go. And I'm going to explain a little bit more. So the first challenge I'm gonna raise is like for using EHR for medical research, like there is usually no precise variable extraction available. The information about the clinical variable that are useful for the study are usually scattered among like the vast EHR data set. We have like millions of variables in total for each patient. However, like to find the one that's relevant for example, a disease diagnosis or certain progression of the disease is really hard, right? One thing is like there is arrows for those codes you can think of easily, they have the same name. The other thing is for certain variables like a disease progression, we don't really have one-to-one precise indicator in the data set. There's no code called cancer progression in the EHR system. So it raises a challenge for us to do cancer research. So traditionally, we have relied on expert review. So basically, like we would have some disease like the domain expert. They are trained physicians for the disease. They will read through the medical notes, and then they will annotate manually the variables we need, and as if they are filling this study reporting form, right? So in a traditional way. However, this is very slow and costly. So in this project, I'm going to introduce like a recent development that we have more scalable automated extraction tools. One is phenotyping, that we can learn diseases and symptoms. And second is natural language processing, that we are able to extract documentation directly from the narrative notes. And we can combine these tools with much fewer number of expert review for validation and the tuning of these methods. So here is basically a integrated data curation pipeline for preparation of real-world evidence and analysis data from EHR data. So this is another ongoing project. Today, we won't focus on the detail of this pipeline, but just give you a brief overview that we start with the variable matching of the key. We identify the key clinical variables in the RCT design, and then we map to the list of EHR features. And in the second step, we will extract the cohort that's relevant to the study, like either with the disease or they have underwent a certain treatment. And third, we extracted the needed clinical variable using the tools I have mentioned. And in the end, we prepare some like expert reviewed annotations for the tuning of this method and the validation, and of course for some robust subsequent analysis. So another issue with using EHR for treatment effectiveness comparison is like we are dealing with observational study, right? So data is given, so the treatment assignment is not randomized. So it's really what is decided by the physician according to their knowledge of the patient's status. So we have to account for confounding. So to give you an idea, what is confounding? Here is an example from our study, case study. So we want to study the patients with early stage colon cancer and the type of their colectomy. So basically, they're treated with a colectomy. One is the traditional one that's called open colectomy, and it's we have a better view of the anatomy. So presumably there's more operating space. But then is a newer trend is called the laparoscopy assist colectomy. Is less invasive, so probably will have a better recovery right after the procedure. And here, to give you an example, what is confounding? Like a cancer stage is a confounder because it has first, due to we observe from the data, due to the cautiousness initially, the newer procedure was more often given to healthier patients with lower stage. Right, so it associates with a treatment decision. The second is like the lower stage is also associated with better cancer survival, which people all know. So it associates with the outcome. So whenever a variable like associated with treatment and the outcome at the same time, we call it confounder in causal inference. So if we ignore this confounding effect, just contrast marginal mortality of this OC group versus LAC group, it does not fairly reflect their difference, right? Because LAC might seem better simply because they have more patients with lower stage, right? So it doesn't really tell like that this procedure is is better. So another element which is new that kind of in the EHR study is like we usually have a long time span of collecting data. So for example, for this study, we collect data starting from 2006 to 2019. So many things have changed. Like a lot of targeted therapies are like underwent a clinical trial, and then they are approved and put into use gradually and become more popular, and they're moving up their lines, from the second to first, right? So a lot of things have changed. So and we also see related to the surgery, like LAC has been increasingly given to even stage 3 patients over time. And also, like I mentioned, like the better management of late stage patients, like adjuvant chemotherapy and better targeted therapy and immunotherapy might shorten the gap in survival across different stages, right? So it also have a change of outcome associated with stage over time, right? So then this distortion of treatment effect, confounding is the strength of confounding is just different, right? Maybe it's stronger in the beginning, and I think it's getting weaker and weaker over the time. So it's like this time trend is also a thing we need to take into consideration. So the way we solve this problem through statistical modeling is basically twofold. First is targeting the confounding itself. We have to start with a broad list of confounders like stage. I'm gonna give example like how broad this can be. And second, we're gonna learn things, the defining character is like it must associate with both treatment mechanism and outcome. So we have to learn the effect on treatment decision and to adjust the arms accordingly so that we can correct for those discrepancy of features, imbalance of these features in different arms. And second, we have to adjust for their contribution in the outcome. right? So in another model. And since these are two models, then in order to combine these two models and provide a better, more powerful estimation, we would use the doubly robust estimation in the end. And to address this temporal trends in confounding, we include a calendar time as the covariate, and we would describe the temporal trends by the interaction, including the as additional covariate, the interaction between all the existing variables, the broad list of confounders, with the calendar time. Of course, we can do better, like using other more advanced tools, but for this study, we just make it more transparent. So we use calendar time as a stratification. And since we would create a lot of additional variables, covariates here with the interaction, so we need to do a selection variable and also interaction to control the variance, right? So here is the study design of our case study of the emulation of the cost group trial. This trial was reported on New England Journal of Medicine in 2004, and we are trying to use the data at the Mass General Brigham EHR to emulate the trial. And the RCT recruits the patient with stage 1 to 3 colon cancer, and the two arms, they are LAC versus OC, and outcome of interest is the overall survival or OS. And the surgeries were done between 2006, like 1996 to 2001, and they are followed up for additional 3 years. So the result was reported in 2004. And the data is published on Project Data Sophia. So that's the main reason why we picked this one as the one that to be emulated, because we have individual level data available. And we stratify our EHR colectomy spanning from 2006 and 2017 into 3 temporal trends. So they are divided from 2006 to 2009, and 2010 to 2013, and 2014 to 2017. And here is the study design flow chart. So we have basically 2 blocks. First is the data curation, and we start with the construction of a colon cancer cohort, and we go into finding the patient with the appropriate indication and basically treated by colectomy at the right timing. And then we go through a list of eligibility about their cancer and tumor characteristics. And then we extract additional features that for like a confounding adjustment. And in the data analysis part, like we develop the time, we construct a time-dependent model to account for the confounding, especially with this temporal trend. And we to minimize the variance, right, to have a better accuracy, we co-train the model from different time temporal periods with some data model selection tools to making them close together if no data evidence suggesting otherwise. And then we will be able to produce a comparison between LAC versus OC in overall survival for all years, and stratified for each like a temporal period. And to evaluate the uncertainty, we use a non-parametric bootstrap. So for the construction, first we talk about the data curation in detail. So we start with a broad scanning of more than almost 66,000 patients ever with a colon cancer code that we obtained from the FieldWise catalog mapping. And then we used a unsupervised phenotyping method, which called the map score, to narrow down the colon cancer patients. This tool uses the diagnosis code and the mention of colon cancer in medical notes, and we would expect a patient with colon cancer, they have a routine EHR reference of the cancer, and for other patients, they might have occasional reference, but it wouldn't be regular, right? So if it's false positive and noise. And the method uses a mixture of Poisson model to distinguish from the patient with colon cancer versus other patients. And then we ask expert review 100 patients randomly sampled from the data for their true colon cancer disease status as a gold standard labels, and we will choose a cutoff using the map with 95% specificity. And then in the data indications part, we first bring down the type of colectomy that the patient have underwent. We based on the description of the CPT code, the procedure code, we focus on those with a partial colectomy on the single colon segment. So basically, it has to be a partial colectomy code, and the patient cannot have multiple location, right, appearing on the same day for the surgery. And also we would exclude, if multiple colectomy codes are recorded in the same week, and that means the procedure might be more complicated. There's multiple surgeries. And the timing of the colectomy in the EHR design is not specified, but everybody enrolled, they received their colectomy within 40 days after their diagnosis. And so we also have this 90 days window to require, if the colectomy must be done right away to match as close as possible the randomized clinical trial. And then we extract the clinical conditions from the EHR as to match the eligibility criteria. There are like a prior or concurrent cancer, Crohn's disease, or acutely obstructed colon. We use the fee code as tied to this disease and symptoms, and use as an indicator if the patient has seen it. We will exclude them if they have that in a 5-year or 1 year or 3-year window, depending on the nature of the disease. And we also use a natural language processing tools that extract the numerical numbers from the natural nodes to learn that stage. For example, if the mention of a metastasis or the stage flowing with any numerical number. And also to be more specific to colon cancer, because the patient might have other disease, also have a stage. So we would use the relevance measure to see how close a colon cancer is mentioned in the vicinity of those stage and the numerical number extraction. The tool is called NICE. And here is the data creation, curation flowchart. So starting with like I said, 66,000 patients, we go down layer by layer. So we end up with around 1,000 patients that's eligible for the study. So it means like it shows another evidence that the randomized clinical trial, they are really not generalizable in a way that it's in the broad population is only a very small fraction of the patients will qualify for a trial. So then we move on to the statistical analysis part. So we talk about that we need to, in order to capture as much confounding as possible, we'll have to start compile a broad list of the potential confounders. So here is a candidate list that for your future reference. We first include all these variables considered in RCT, also available in that data, open source data. So that's the gender, cancer stage, tumor location, and if there's a colon adhesion or not. And we also include other demographic features, even if it's not reported for the trial data. So including race, gender, race and age at colectomy. And we are including additional clinical features that's potentially relevant to the study. For example, obesity is reported associated with laparoscopy assisted procedure, because I think it might raise some technical issue in the beginning. So people are a bit hesitant. But then we have a later study showing that it's okay. So then we have a growing number of obesity. So that's potentially a confounding. And then we also have some alternative collecting procedural code for right and sigmoid colon cancer that indicating there might be a different procedure being done here. And we also have construct a healthcare utilization. That's basically the volume of the total number of healthcare encounters, showing how healthy the patient is in general. We also have the prior diagnosis of each individual diseases grouped up to the FIRAS catalog for the overall history and within 1 year prior to the colectomy. And we, like we said, we stratify the patient into 3 temporal period groups. And we have 3 models to describe first the patient the characteristic distribution difference between the EHR population with the RCT population. Use a density exponential tilt density ratio model. Then we use a logistic regression model to describe the treatment assignment mechanism or the propensity score. Then we use a Cox model for the outcome regression or describing the overall survival, right, for each arm. And analysis method is like we first marginal screen to find variables strongly associated with either the treatment assignment of LAC or the outcome outcome of interest overall survival. And then with within the screen positive variables, we will run a model selection method called adaptive lasso to find the signals that's really strong predictors for the treatment assignment and overall survival. And then we would regulate the temporal interactions, so we allow some flexibility if they are different over time. We want to push them close together if there's no strong evidence, right, to minimize reduce some of the estimation uncertainty. We use group lasso for that. And in the end, after we train this model, we put that into a formula that's guided by the W robust estimation method. All these formulas are available in the appendix of the paper. So here is the analysis result that we got from our emulation. So we have 4 plots here. First one is about all year comparison. We pull all the patients together, and from the second and to the fourth, they are stratified analysis into each temporal period. And the red curve is the LAC group. And the green or the turquoise curve is the OC group, and the band around is pointwise 95 confidence interval from non-parametric bootstrapping. You can see using our temporal trend adjusted analysis, we are able to have a very similar result like the target RCT. If you look at the all-year analysis, we have a very closely knit together and lines for the 2 arms, and their confidence will overlap, right? So it's similar for the solid. Solids is our emulation. The dashed ones is pulled from the RCT, so very close. And also across the different year group, we see that the survival is generally improving. It's going up, right? But still, we are able to show that they are not much significantly different from each other between LAC and OC. And here is a chart that we're trying to compress all the temporal trend information into one graph. So you can pause and read later, but here the color is the model coefficient for our propensity score model and Cox model, and the box size give us basically the change of distribution of the feature over time, right? And if we have side-by-side box for the Cox model, it means the coefficient is we detect a difference in its role for predicting the overall survival for 2 treatment arms. And in summary, we observe that for the patient population, we have a number of early stage colon cancer expanding throughout the years. One is, it's possible that the healthcare system is expanding their business, but it's also might be due to we have better screening, right? So we have a more early detection of the cancer, and some of the prevalence of the clinical conditions are also evolving over time. The relevant one thing that's probably relevant is other symptoms involving abdomen and pelvis. That's basically what's going on in the vicinity, and it might affect how difficult the procedure is going to be, right? So inflammation in the other organs in abdomen and the pelvis, it might also create a risk and a challenge. And we also notice the treatment pattern is evolving, like the number of AAC is increasing over the time from 81 in the first period to 305 in the last period. And we also see an increasing rate of LAC for stage 2 and 3 cancer patients. And we also see a general improving of overall survival. And the possible explanation of these is like, we have a increasing confidence of LAC over time. So it's, so it's has been used indistinguishably, compared to the classical OC. And also we might have a new targeted therapy so that the patient with recurrence and advance and progression, they had better survival, right, over the time. So later patients have a better survival. So in summary, we perform a careful data curation analysis to ensure the quality of the RCT emulation with our EHR data. And this will, we try to be automated, but still we will say a guidance from the subject matter knowledge is recommended. And we use the phenotyping method map for the disease cohort construction, and we learned the medical notes with the NLP tools. We extract like a cancer stage right from it directly, and we also match the some implicit design of the guiding RCT, like the gap between the diagnosis and the colectomy, which would not be listed as a criteria, but we have to be in this have this subject matter knowledge. And we also capture confounding from some other diagnosis and symptoms co-occurring. And we adjust for various temporal trends in analysis. So all these knowledge, they are very useful if later we want to design a pre-specified analysis plan as advocated by some of other people in the field to reduce objective bias, right? So even if like you might have a pre-specified plan, would eliminate the subjective bias, but if you have a poor method, then some still objective bias can be there. So this is kind of helping to solve that issue. And some further discussion is like this temporal trends in real world evidence have been found to hinders EHR risk prediction tools, as reported in I think a viewpoint paper of New England Journal of Medicine. And basically, if you use a method of training 1 year, it can fail like abruptly in a future year if something has changed, either administratively or clinically, right? So our study demonstrated various temporal trends that may affect for real-world evidence study for treatment comparison. And also it's related to another hot topic is like we're gonna use external control, especially historical control for a future clinical, like a regulatory purpose clinical trial. So a major, however, that's like a temporal trend might make this inappropriate if things have changed rapidly, right? So you always have a better outcome with the newly conducted like a randomized clinical trial versus like a clinical single arm trial versus a historical arm, because the management in the back in those years were poor. So you have to caution must be taken. And also we also offer a way to adjust for things using models. So I think even if that has been done this way, certain mathematical adjustment is needed to first is investigate existence of trends. The second is like using some analysis to adjust for the effect, right, from those temporal trends. And here is the end of my talk, and the rest are the papers I've come across during my talk. So you can go through them if you're interested in any aspect of the study. So that's it.